Hi, good morning, teachers. Well, that's actually good afternoon. Good afternoon, teachers. Welcome to this, our lunch hour session on the first PD day for the academic year 2022-2023. My name is Davian Degley, though I suspect you know that. Today, I'm joined by some colleagues from the Teaching Council. Mrs. Great Wilmot is around. Let me just give her a big shout out. Even if she's not in the room, she's sitting in front of me and is hearing me, but she's joining in a second, I promise. And I suspect Mr. Bailey from the Teaching Council is also here. Good morning, greetings and salutations, Mr. Bailey, even as I make you co-host for the meeting. This morning, we are really mindful of respecting your time and the commitment that we made that this will be a lunch hour session. So we're going to get right into it by inviting Mrs. Spirit Wilmot to go ahead and whisper a word of prayer for us this morning. Go ahead, Mrs. Spirit Wilmot, you are co-host.
Good morning, everyone. I can't seem to, okay, now you can see me and I can see you. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for your continued faithfulness to us. We pause this day, Lord, to thank you for another PD day. And thank you for the organization. Thank you for all the educators who have taken the time out so that we can come out and learn together. We ask, oh God, that you bless this time, this hour that we will spend just being empowered to be better educators as we serve our nation and give glory to you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mrs. Spirit Wilmot. Right. So today we thought we would invite you in to talk a little bit about action research for teachers. We know that this is an area that's on the appraisal, and it's an area that I know you have asked us about on a number of occasions to help you understand what it is that you are expected to do, and not just what it is that you are expected to do, how can you become really optimal in this area. So this afternoon, we're going to spend only an hour, looking at what is expected from the appraisal with respect to action research. And we are going to be talking a little bit as well about what really is action research. You should be seeing my screen. You can just confirm that you are indeed seeing my screen. Indeed, you are seeing my screen. Let me also make my chat visible on my screen so that I can see what perchance might be happening over there. Right, so there are three things we want to look at this afternoon. We want to talk a little bit about what action research is. I want us to have what I'm going to call a working definition. Working definition, not a conceptual definition, not an academic or a theoretical definition, but a working definition for this discussion. I also want us to look at the teacher appraisal standards related to action research. And I really want us to get into a discussion about some of the practical strategies that you can use to become started on action research almost immediately. But before we begin, I have a little warm-up activity that I want you to engage with for me. On the screen, you are seeing four options. From your experience now. I don't mean from your idealized position, but from your experience. An experience means you actually engaging and doing. From your experience, which of these four things would you think is the best comparison to action research? And I have four things that I hope you can relate to. The first is what we in Jamaica call red money. You know red money in Jamaica? That those coins that you have that don't have any value, I don't even know if they're still allowed, are they even still legal tender? Red money. It doesn't matter whether or not you have it. Is that how you see action research? Or, as a friend of mine loves to remind me, do you see action research like ice? He says it's nice to have ice, but frankly, it's optional. That's good if you have some ice in your drink, but frankly, it's optional. If it's not there, it doesn't matter. Or is it like salt? You really only need a little to have or to see or to feel the impact. Or is it like water? You cannot do without it. You need it all the time. So I see a lot of people saying water. I figure that you say water. And I see a few persons saying ice. I'm allowing the chat to speak to me. So go ahead. I'm looking in the chat to see where you are at. Lots of water. A few persons say ice. It's nice to have, but frankly, it's optional. Salt, Valsia, I Valsia. Kimisha says water. A few persons are getting to the salt stage. You really only need a little to see or feel the impact. Nobody's at red money. It doesn't matter whether or not you have it. Nobody's at red money. Anybody brave enough to open their mic and say, I'm a red money person? That is where my action research ideology is. My action research is like at red money. Anybody feels that way? Nobody feels that way. Wow, so I'm really impressed that nobody near feels that action research is like red money, things that you can do without, and it doesn't really matter if you have it or not. Salt and water, little salt and water, Carly says. So everybody, most people are at water and salt, a few persons are at ice. It's nice to have it, but frankly, it's optional. One of those persons who said ice, I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit from you as to why you said ice. Let me go back in my chat and see if I can call out somebody who said ice. Or if you said ice and want to raise your hand, I can just take that hand now. Sharik Brown said it's like ice for her. Anybody else anybody said ice and want to share over the mic, just in the interest of a variety of voices in the space. I'm looking to see who else said ice. Why Sharik is you alone said ice. Sharik Brown definitely said ice. She said it twice too. That's how confident she was. Oh, she said it thrice. Sharik, are you spamming my chat? Okay, so only Sharik apparently. Sharik, you want to share with us why you think action research is like ice? It's really optional. You can do it in the chat, or if you wish, you can open your mic. You can raise your hand so I can allow you to open your mic. No, Sharik has gone quiet on us. But in terms of your experience, somebody who said water, from your experience, tell us why you are saying water. Again, raise your hand and I can take it. From your experience, I want one person from their experience to tell us why they're saying water. Water is, you cannot do without it. You need it all the time. Again, raise your hand, I'll take it. I will open the mic so that you can share with us. Ice and water, Donnelly Seaton says. I'm looking for anybody else who says ice, because I'm really interested in the ice option. Diane Mays says water. Still waiting for one person to share with us why they think action research is like water. Absolutely essential. Something you must do all the time, something you cannot but do. iPhone, greetings iPhone. It might be nice if you rename yourself iPhone so we know who we are speaking to. I think you have permission to speak. Go ahead.
All right. Good
afternoon,
colleague.
Oh Lord, what's your name, iPhone? Lord, I think we're losing you. I think you have some connection problems.
Yes, I think I will rename it a little. I think I'm going to rename. I'm going to try to rename. It's Carol from Angels.
We're having a problem hearing you, Carol, from Angels.
Yeah, are you hearing me now?
Oh Lord. Let me see if it's better. Go ahead.
Okay, hearing me now?
Yes, we are hearing you now.
Okay. I was saying, I think it's like water, because with water, it's in everything. For anything to take place.
Carol, this is not an essay you're writing to submit to your lecture at university. I really want you to talk to me from your experience. From your experience, is it like water to you? Is it like water to you? Right? Do you use it all the time?
Yes, because it flows.
Carol, them say you're stretching. In the chat, they say you're stretching. But we're not hearing you, Carol. So let me take somebody else and maybe we can circle back to Carol. I really want to hear somebody though, because I really want to know what experience do you have with action research? How are you using it? What have you done? Is it something that you have ever done? A lot of people say it's like water, but nobody wants to tell me why it's like water. And I don't want you to tell me academically why it's like water. From your experience, have you been using it? Is there anybody in this space who has ever completed an action research? Let's start there. Vanessa Davis Johnson. Hi, Vanessa.
Good afternoon, Mr. Leslie.
Greetings.
Yes, I have. So in 2019, when I was studying, I did one. And well, I did it for college, but I saw the effect and the importance of it. So I
Mhm.
did it on problem solving in math. And during my
Mhm.
research, I found out that for the upper school students, most for them in the research, it stated that the older students, they prefer to jump right from the question and they want to get straight to the answer. While the younger students, like for the lower schools from kindergarten about, they will actually more be willing to follow the problem solving process to get to the answer. And
Okay.
I have seen it having been teaching math, and I realized that this is actually true for the older
Okay.
students.
So,
I
so,
tell
so
you,
Vanessa, let me ask you, you were studying when you did it. So you did it as a part of, as a requirement for your studies.
yes, but I've seen the importance of it. So I'm
So
actually
have you ever
thinking
done
of,
an action research as a part of your instructional practice? Not for studies, not because you have an assignment, but because it's something you were interested
yeah, but it was actually because at the time I was studying, I was also teaching.
in. So Vanessa, let me ask you, if they never asked you up at UWI or wherever you were studying to do the action research, you would have gone and done it, or you did it because they asked you to? The
No,
point I'm
but
making
from
is there
when,
something that you do
yes, I
usually?
understand. But
Mhm.
having been introduced to it there, I saw the importance of it. And now I am in the process of and thinking of doing one this year
Yeah, in the
using,
process of thinking of doing one. I love
no,
it. I love
I
it.
thought, no,
No, no,
I
Vanessa,
thought
I
of
get it.
it.
Don't worry. I'm troubling
No,
Vanessa. Trust
man,
me. I just troubling me
no.
troubling. I get you, Vanessa. I get you. Don't worry about it. I get you. I get you. Don't worry about it.
But
But
this
I
time is
troubling you a
not.
little.
It's not in the area of math, it's more in the area of language, reading, that sort of thing. But
Oh,
because I
please.
did it
Oh,
and
you
my
have. Mhm.
experience with that one for college, it opened my eyes to the importance and not only doing it for studies per se, but for
Mhm.
actually helping you to solve the problems that you face in the classroom on a
Okay.
day-to-day basis.
Right. So if anybody wants to share in the chat, and I'm really spending a few minutes here because it's important to kind of understand what your experience has been like with respect to action research. Have you been engaged in it? And not like Vanessa has, where it's a part of your studies. But I think we all did at some point a research somewhere to get your diploma, not your diploma, your degree. I think a paper is required. Well, it used to be, I don't know if that's still the case, but certainly for your master's program, you must submit a paper that involves field work. Is there anybody who has done action research? Not within the context of research, but I mean, within the context of studying, but just as a part of your instructional curiosity. Thank you, Sharik. I see the comment that you have made in the chat. Kenisha Marshall says, I honestly can't say that I have ever had the experience of doing an action research. I may have done it incidentally, but not deliberately, so I can't really make a comparison. Thank you very much, Kenisha. I understand. Right. So see, there's a full spectrum, I believe, of experience with respect to action research. Though I find that within our local context, quite frankly, most persons see action research either as red money. It's there, but it doesn't really matter if you do it or not. Or you see it like perhaps ice. It's nice to have it, but frankly, it's optional. So if somebody give you a glass of drink, you would love to have ice in it. If there's no ice in it, you go, well, okay, I drink the drink anyway. You know? So we don't make a big deal of it. What we really want to get to be honest, is to get to a stage where we have normalized action research and we're all the way over on the right hand of the spectrum. But let's kind of press along quickly. What then is action research? Let me enable the closed captioning. There's somebody in the chat who is asking for some aids with respect to captioning. Closed caption. Give me a second, guys. Oh, I don't have that installed here. I'm so sorry, Maisa. If anybody wishes to type as we talk, so that somebody who is in the chat who is in the meeting who is hearing impaired can follow. That would be nice. If you are really good at typing and you want to take up the responsibility of typing while we talk so that somebody can try to follow, they can raise their hand now and I can assign you. I know in Google Meet, we can have a live transcription taking place, but Zoom does not allow that, I believe. So again, just making a request if anybody is able to do like a live closed captioning so that somebody else who is in the chat can follow what we're saying, that would be very useful. Otherwise, we may have to forego that option entirely. All right, so in terms of what action research is, I want you to think of it in this very simple framework that I have here. The first thing that becomes a part of action research is, as a teacher, you identify a problem or something that you're curious about. So you're a teacher and you are curious about something. You go, I wonder what would happen if so-and-so is changed. You're curious, or there might be a problem that you're facing. My students are struggling to do problem solving in math. Vanessa was sharing earlier about her experience with that. So once you identify something that you want to understand more, or some problem you're trying to solve, the next step now is to implement some kind of action. And it's important that we understand that action research must involve an action, something that you are implementing that will likely impact the problem or the curiosity. So if students are struggling to problem solve, you might implement some kind of problem solving intervention, and students will then interact with that for maybe a term, 13 weeks or so. And at the end of that, you see if the action has worked. So during the action, now you get to step 3, you collect data and you analyze the data, not just at the end, but you're collecting and analyzing data at different stages, usually at the start and while you're implementing and at the end. And then the fourth thing that you do, you look at the results and you assess your practice, and you may need to change your practice based on the results or not. So this is a very simple framework for what action research really is. Zora Neale Hurston, somebody who writes a lot about research, actually used this quotation that I use all the time. Research is formalized curiosity. That's all research is. Formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. So you're poking and you're prying to see what happens, and you have some purpose in mind. And so if you think about action research like that, anything that you're curious about, you can formalize that and call it a research. The word formalize is important because research must be some formalized, deliberate set of activity. You can't just do anything and say you have done a research. And that, I think, is where the problem lies for many persons. You must formalize it. We will talk about formalization in a few slides from here. So at a glance, just so that we're clear, you implement some action, you develop some intervention, and in order to see if these actions and intervention can improve practice. When teachers implement the action, you are now using the principles of research to collect data to see if the action or intervention is effective. And then once you kind of analyze that data, you are now going to assess your practice. This, in a nutshell, is what action research is at a glance. An example might help. Here's an example. Miss Jones, a grade 6 teacher, realizes that students do not complete their homework. That is the problem that Miss Jones is having. Step 2, she implements an accountability partner system. She says, I need to figure out how to help my students submit their homework. So she implements an accountability partner system, meaning each student is responsible. And it's in quotes because, quite frankly, you can't make one student responsible for another, legally and technically. But each student is responsible for ensuring that his or her partner does the homework. That is the system, that is the intervention that she has implemented. She does something, she changes something about her practice. She implements something new, she does a different thing. So you can't say you're doing an action research and the same thing that you were doing before is what you're doing during the research, during the action. You must be an action. We say the action must be visible. When I come to your class and look at you teach, I must be able to see the action that you say you're implementing. That's a big part of the challenge we sometimes have. Teachers say, okay, next term, I am going to implement strategies to help boys learn. Okay, that is my intervention. And when you go to the class, you don't see the strategies, you don't They are not visible. The teacher says they are there, but you can't see what they are. There must be visible strategy. In this case, there is an accountability partner. It's a visible strategy. You can look at the strategy, you can assess it. A principal, a co-worker, a parent, a student can say that this is the strategy. They can describe it, they can see it working or not working for that matter. Once she does her implementation, she collects data about homework submission rates. So, before the accountability partner, 20% of the students were submitting homework, and that's your submission rate. And then she, after the action, she's now looking at what her submission rate looks like. She interviewed the students to see how the system worked or not. And what she realizes that homework submission improves. She decides that she will always have an accountability partner system in place. It's a very simple kind of cycle as to how action research flows. Clearly, this is very simplistic what I've done here. I've really simplified it. So at a glance, you get a sense as to what we're doing. Clearly, there might be many different things you have to think about at a different stage. So for example, when you get to stage 2, how do you pair students together? Do you pair friends and friends together? How do you determine which 2 students will be accountable? How do you get students to understand what an accountability partner is? How do you empower students to become accountable to each other? How do you talk to them and train them and coach them to have conversations with each other that might help? Accountability partners is just something you name and then leave it alone. People have to be empowered to hold each other accountable. Even in step 3, the collection of data can be a little difficult. When we say submit homework, we mean submit homework on time, submit homework that is correct. Is any submission? If students know that they should submit, they may just submit anything at all and call it a submission. How are we going to treat with those kinds of things? So there are different things you'll have to figure out at each stage, but the idea is at a glance, that is what action research looks like. I have another example, but I'm really watching the time. So if I need to come back to it, then I will. Let me pause here though. Go to my chat to see what's happening. And while I'm looking to see what's happening, if you have any questions so far about what we have said, now is a good time to raise your hand. Now is a good time to raise your hand if you have any question about what we have said so far. Let me just see if I can find a live transcription. Why am I thinking there should be a live transcription service? Is there? Would have to set it up before, apparently. Sorry about that. That was not set up before. All right. Any question? Let me just make sure that we're all on the same page. I'm going into my chat. Oh, Elaine has been transcribing. Okay, thank you very much, Elaine, my good friend from Montego Bay High School, master teacher Elaine, master science teacher Elaine, actually. All right, so let's press on because I don't think there are any questions. Good. So the first thing I want to say is that when we think about research, we usually think academic research. And our experience with research is text-rich and boring. If you think about it, you don't go home in the evenings to go and read research papers, do you? They're not exciting. Even people who like to read, and I read a lot. I read a ton of stuff. I'm always reading something. I can't tell the last time I've read a research paper because, quite frankly, guys, they are boring. They were not written to be exciting. As a matter of fact, when I teach research methods to students, one of the hardest things to get them to understand is that you are writing to be boring. You are not writing with suspense in mind. You are not writing with excitement in mind. You are not writing so the readers will be held, they will be reading with bated breath, wondering what happens next. No, you're not even having a conversation with the reader. It is written in such a way that it's not very exciting. That is academic research. There's a lot of text. As a matter of fact, it is very rare you look at an academic paper and see colors in it, because most publications insist that everything you give them should be in black and white or grayscale. That's not something that is very appealing. And when we think about research, sometimes that's what we think. There are lots of numbers and graphs and charts in it. That's what we think about when we think about research. And there are lots of rules about formatting, style guides. There's something called APA or MLA or Chicago. And there are rules about whether you capitalize this word or not. Rules about how you cite sources. All sorts of something that just get in the way of actually, enjoying what you're doing. That is academic research. So let me show you an example. I pre-prepared one. I went and I made sure I found one ahead of this session. An example of an academic research. I'm hoping you're seeing my screen that has a research paper on it. It's called Parental Involvement During Pandemic Times, Challenges and Opportunities. Look, I'm just going to scroll through and I'm going to read it together. It is 17 pages long, by the way. 17 pages of continuous, ongoing, fine print, black and white text. Look what it looks like. See? Are you excited as yet to read this paper? Can you imagine getting to page 3 and think, okay, I soon finish, and you realize there are 14 more pages like this? Okay, lots of things to read. Oh, look at that, there's a table. Okay, but the table has no design feature. It's just columns and rows, but there's nothing there to even highlight one column. There's no color, there's no shading. It really is pretty straightforward. We're going through again, we're going through. Again, more words, more text. Another table with numbers this time. Tons of numbers just marching across the screen. At a glance, this is throwing off many persons. Yeah, I don't even know like the summary of this, what it is saying. It doesn't have what we call glanceability. You can't look at it and at a glance see what it is saying. You have to really spend some time studying it. Again, this is what action research is. Are you seeing the screen, by the way? Tamia Taylor said she's not seeing the screen. Are you seeing my action research? I mean, the actual research paper? Yes, something might be going on your screen, Tamia. Right, so a table here with tons of numbers floating across the screen. If you have been brave enough to read to page 6, by the time you get to page 6, lots of people say, all right, I give up. This is it. No more. No more. You have beaten me over the head with this thing for too long. And then look at that. More text, no picture, no image, no graphic, no colorful words in the title, nothing at all. Even the title and the text is at the same level. No, nothing is used in bold. Again, numbers across the screen. Numbers across the screen, text, table, look at that. Oh, look at that, more table. Another table with some whole heap of numbers in there. I know a graph that looks very complicated. There's color here now, at least there's a blue line. But again, this graph has so many numbers on it. It's kind of hard to figure it out. You're gonna have to spend some time discerning what is going on here. What on God's earth is this now? This is like some kind of a bar chart. Again, they have used grayscale, black and white. A little difficult to follow, but I guess you could figure it out if you really are diligent. And oh, look at that, another graph. This one has colors. Maybe that one's a little bit more attractive, appealing to the eye. You get the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that this is the kind of work that we call academic research. This is research that you do and you put on a shelf. This is research you do that you complete in order to submit to a university because you need a master's or a PhD. Quite frankly, most people don't spend any time reading this kind of research. This kind of research is done, put on a shelf, and it is read by other people who are doing research. So the next time somebody reads this paper is when they are going to do research on an area similar to this, and they will read the paper so that they too can write a paper like this, and then put down that paper and go about their real life. This is not real life research. This is the kind of research that we call academic research. It is a kind of research that the academia, a set of people who believe that there are rules about research, they are the ones who produce this kind of research. When you say you're going to do some research as to the best way to involve parents in their children's life, this is not what you're reading. I promise you, this is not what you're reading. You're going to go on Google and you're going to go parental involvement strategies. And you're going to find a video or something and you're going to consume that. Or you're going to find a nice little paragraph with some well-highlighted strategies and you're going to use that. This is the kind of research that you do, you put down, you move on from it. It's academic research. Action research that teachers do is not academic research. Let me say that directly to the camera, clearly articulated so that it can be caught on the camera and on the mic. Action research that teachers do is not academic research. It is not this kind of research. This kind of research is for the academic. You are doing research for real life. I thought of an example that might help you understand it more. Wait, where's my example? Here you go. Here's my example. On the left, you will see a fashion show with people with a young lady on a runway. That is what you call catwalk fashion. You ever see these models on runway modeling clothes? And you go, who ever wear that? That is catwalk fashion. Catwalk fashion is what we call avant-garde fashion. It is fashion that is supposed to make you think about clothes in different ways. But nobody is going to buy this dress. As a matter of fact, this dress was perhaps never made. It was just there for the catwalk. Catwalk fashion is what we would think about as academic research. Sidewalk fashion is a kind of clothes that you go on Amazon and buy. It's a kind of clothes you go into a store and buy. It's a kind of clothes you can imagine yourself wearing. Sidewalk fashion is what the young lady on the right is wearing. That's the kind of research you want to do. Research that has immediate impact on the sidewalk of life. Research that is not about the catwalk, but about sidewalk. So when you think about research, don't think of catwalk fashion. Research you do and put down and move on. Nobody will buy this dress. Nobody is going to, and if they buy it, they're not going to wear it. It's just to be put up as some model somewhere because some famous person made it. And there might be one or two fashion show every year. The Met Gala, for example, if you're really into pop culture, every year the Met puts on this gala, and people are expected to wear avant-garde fashion, and they wear stuff like what's on the left. And then when they wear it, they don't ever wear it again. Sidewalk fashion is the kind of research we're encouraging you to do. It's practical, it makes sense. Right, that's what Kenisha Marshall is saying. Practical, just like action research. Research that you can take up and immediately start to use and implement in your classroom. So I decided I would spend some time with that research paper that I just showed you, the one that I said was really boring, and God, trust me, it was boring. I spent some time last night reading that paper so that I could summarize it for you in a way that looks more like sidewalk fashion. So I'm going to show you now at a glance. Well, not at a glance, but I'm going to show you that same research paper simplified for mass consumption. It is not prepared with APA style in mind. It is not prepared with submission to you with a master's in mind. It is prepared so that people who are busy, people who just want to hear, get to the bottom line. People want to hear, so what did you do and how did it work? It is prepared with those people in mind. Not for university lecturers who have all day and all night to read your paper and underline words that spell wrong. It's not that kind of submission. It's a submission that is geared towards action. People need to understand what you did and what are the results. So here is what we call a poster of an action research. Or of a research. This wasn't an action research. This is a poster. A poster is really a way of summarizing your research in one graphic way. You are not trying to write everything that's in your research. You're trying to summarize it so that people who are walking past the poster can look at it and understand what the research was about. So this research, the same one I showed you about, that was, I said long and boring, and God knows it was long and boring. Why did we do this research? And based on what the article said, I just summarized for you in one sentence. School closures caused by COVID-19 forced parents to take on the education of their children. How the parents manage during this period. That is why they did the research. The second question that I imagine, if I'm going to tell you about a research, I would want you to hear is, who did we survey? Who did we include in the research? So my second little box here is, who did we survey? The survey was administered to 21,333 parents. Of those 21,333 parents, 3 in every 4 parents had children in primary school. So we can call them primary school parents, just for argument's sake. And 9 in every 10 were mothers. So right away, at a glance, you're getting an idea as to what the research was about and who we studied. And you never have to read 17 pages of pure black and white boring text with numbers marching across the screen. So at a glance, I'm getting a sense as to what this research is about. How did we collect the data? Well, we use a quantitative methodology and we administered a survey using Google Form online. Again, right away, you're getting a sense as to what the research is about. What did we find out? Well, here are 4 important things that we found out. 1, the greatest hurdle parents had in supporting their children was student autonomy. The students could not lead their own learning, the parents were saying. The students could not sit in an online class and be independent. The parents had to be there watching and monitoring them, prompting them, keeping them on task. So the greatest hurdle parents had was not even time, was autonomy. 35% of the parents said that that was the problem. Followed by time. The parents just never had enough time. And you kind of get the sense. So at a glance, you see student autonomy, self-directed learners. That was a major problem for the parents. Let me acknowledge and make co-host Mrs. Solomon, who I realize has joined us. Greetings, Mrs. Solomon. Mrs. Solomon is Senior Director here in the Teaching Council. She is out of office here, so I don't even know if she's able to speak where she is. The second major finding that came from the research was that parents spent on average 1.5 hours per day helping their children. For primary schools parents, this was 2.15 hours per day, but for secondary school, 1.38 hours. So you realize from the research, secondary school parents spend less time helping students. And I guess you can see why that might be right away. Because these kids are more independent. They might not need the kind of hand-holding that a primary school parent would give. But really, only 1.5 hours per day. During the pandemic, this is not outside of pandemic. During the pandemic, these parents spent with their kids 1.5 hours per day. That's it, no more. The third point, only 5.4% of parents indicated that they were unable to help their children. For primary school parents, that was 3.7%, and for secondary, 7.9%. But across both groups, only 5.4% of them said that they were unable to help their children. And then the fourth thing, parental involvement was greatest with monitoring kids in class. They spent 1.75 hours per day monitoring. That's an average again, monitoring kids in class. Of course, they did other things and that brought down the average, you know. So given these findings, what's next? What is the recommendation? The article made 2 recommendations. 1, parents would benefit not from learning content, but strategies for keeping students on task. We spend a lot of time, the article says, helping teachers learn content. There are some interventions that teach teachers, that teach parents math, and teach parents science, and teach parents social studies. The parents said, no, that's not what they want. They don't want that. They would rather learn strategies that they can use in the household to keep students on task. Yes? Not content learning, but strategies for keeping students on task at home. And so the article made that recommendation. And it also recommended that schools can help parents by making students more self-directed. So if we focus on helping students become self-directed, the schools, parents would benefit from that. So you see, at a summary, there's a very nice summary of the article without interacting with 17 pages. It is presented a little bit more interestingly. There are some graphics involved, some colors are introduced. I have used like some nice charts here to indicate where the statistics is to be included and that kind of thing. There is something here that I want you to understand. We want you to think about producing and preparing research that can be consumed in this way. Do not think about preparing and producing research that is going to turn people off. Your action research should be prepared and produced so that just like this one is easy to consume, if you spend a few minutes with it, you will get it. You really want to produce research that has that about it. Now, it doesn't have to be a chart like this, although a poster is a very useful way of summarizing your research, I admit. And there's something called a poster presentation. And if you go online and look for poster presentation, you will see actual templates that you can use to create a poster of your research. That is a thing. But you can also summarize all of this in a very short paper, 3 to 5 pages, and you summarize all of this, and the important findings that you want persons to know are there, and you're preparing and producing it in an attractive way. All right. So don't overthink it. As you think about the research, there's something I needed to have said earlier. Oh, yes. Oh no, I did skip it out. So as you think about what the appraiser says, in guiding principle 2, standard 2.3, you are asked to, well, the standard is that teachers should engage in reflective teaching and classroom investigative action, in bracket action research, to evaluate the impact of his or her instructional choices, their action, da, 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 da. In other words, there's an expectation that you should complete action research, reflective teaching and classroom action, classroom investigative action, action research. That's the standard. The evidence that we're looking for from standard 2.3 is that teachers should have undertaken investigative, qualitative, and I would rather have said qualitative or quantitative approach to assess teaching methods and students' learning to advance students' achievement. So there's clearly an expectation from the appraiser that you will engage in some form of action research. But don't overthink it. Think local. You are doing research to improve your practice. You're not doing research to advance or to solve the education problem in Jamaica. Sometimes I write what people say is the impact of their research. And I'm just about to say, so what about world peace? Is this research going to bring about world peace? Because every striking thing that you can think about, they claim the research is doing. The research is going to help government do so and so. Government, they're not reading your research, my dear. The research is going to help my principal. Your principal, does she even know you're doing it? The research is going to help policy makers. Which policy makers? Donors from our lending partners, IMF and World Bank? Yeah, I don't think so, actually. So think local. You are doing the research for your classroom. This is an instance where you are to be selfish. Think of your classroom, think of your colleagues in your school or in your QEC. You are not doing a research to help Jamaica. And I'm being very honest about that. Your research is not being mobilized so that the government of Jamaica can figure out how to fix the literacy problem. No, you are doing a research to fix the literacy problem in your school, and to the extent that it can in your class, and to the extent that it can in your school, and perhaps even your QEC. No further than that. That's an action research. If it goes beyond that, it's no longer an action research, it's something else. So think local, think immediacy. Forget style guides, forget APA, good God of mercy. Forget about templates and formats, forget about chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. Forget reference list. Forget those things that have always been a part of the way you think about research, and redefine for yourself as a school community what it is that you would want to produce. Think research for consumption, mass consumption. Think sidewalk fashion, not catwalk fashion. And think big. Don't be afraid, though, to swing for the fence. Don't be afraid to think about submitting an article for journals in newspapers. Don't be afraid of that. While that might not be your aim, don't be afraid to say, you know, I think I could prepare this paper to meet the publication guideline for this journal. That's fine. Think about presenting your paper at a conference. ASCD is coming up. Do you know the deadline when ASCD says you must submit proposals to present? You know, anybody can submit a proposal to present at ASCD conference. And I can promise you, if a teacher in my school, let me speak personally, if I am a principal and a teacher in my school makes a submission to ASCD and ASCD says, yes, I want you to come and present this, I, as a principal, am finding every cent I can to pay that principal's fare to go to ASCD. I think the next ASCD is being held in Chicago, 2023. Yes, I think it's Chicago from what I saw. and I'm finding money to pay the teacher's fare. But do you know when the next deadline is to submit a proposal for ASCD? Do you know what the submission guidelines are? So think like that too, you know? Even as you think about your local context and your immediate mass consumption, don't be afraid to swing for the fence. Don't be afraid to think that, you know, I'm going to do this paper and make a submission to a journal. I'm going to capsize it into 500 words and submit it to the Gleaner or to the Observer. I'm going to find an online blog and ask them to publish it. You know, you can think like that too. There's nothing wrong with that. But that is not your driving. That's not what is driving you. We have been talking about research, and we almost make it sound like it's anything you do, you can call action research. But no, there are 4 things I want you to bear in mind when we talk about action research. Documentation. These are what we call threshold requirements. You must have these things to call it a research. Documentation. You must document your steps and your findings. You can't just say, I did a research and here are the findings. You must be able to say, here are the steps that I followed when I did the research. You must document it. Rigor. You must put some rigor into your research. You can't just allow anything to happen and say you did a research. You must be very deliberate about it. You must say, okay, so I'm going to build an accountability partner system to improve homework submission. How can I put rigor into that? Okay, I'm going to give the students a journal and they must keep a log, weekly, daily, weekly, okay, twice per week log of how their accountability partner helped them. But how do I ensure that they are actually writing something that is true? Because students can write anything and I won't know if it's true. Okay, so when I write that my accountability partner helped me by calling me last night to remind me about the homework, I am going to sign it, but my accountability partner should also sign it. So when when the teacher takes my log from me, the teacher sees that I have said my accountability partner helps me and my accountability partner agrees that this actually took place. You see? So the idea is that you can put rigor in your research. You can't allow the research to be compromised at the end. So that people say, well, I don't know if I trust that data, Mr. Lindsay, because anything could have happened at that stage, you know. For all I know, the parents sat down and made up those journals and give the students. How do you know that this actually took place? You know, you must have some systems in place to protect the findings of the research. For action research, you must have, as I said before, a clear, visible, and viable action. You cannot say you're doing an action research and there's no action. The action must be visible. I spoke about this earlier. I ask teachers all the time to tell me what action research you want to do. And they say something like, I'm going to improve my questioning style. Okay, so if I am coming to look at you, at your improved questioning style, what are 5 things that I need to look for? In other words, how do you make that improved questioning style visible so that those who are looking on can see it? When you write about it, can you write about the 5 things that you use to improve your questioning style, and you can point to them in the questions that you ask? Your actions must be clear, they must be visible, they must be viable. Actions cannot be things that you implement and then after 2 weeks they can't work anymore. And you must do fieldwork. Come in, Kimona, see your hand. You must do fieldwork. You must collect data. You can't just go online and go to Google and read some articles and then say you have done an action research. Action research involves collecting data, primary data, either through interviews or questionnaire. You must collect data from the participants in the research. And the data doesn't have to be numerical. It can be qualitative, it can be words, it can be pictures, it can be drawings, whatever it is, but you must collect data that you can analyze to make sense of. Kimon, go ahead, Kimon. Thank you so much for putting up your hand so I can be reminded to pause and take some questions.
Good morning to you, or good afternoon, rather.
Good afternoon, Kimon.
Mr. Leslie. I think you may have touched my point I want to ask. I was asking, what if my students are not literary compliant? When I say that, I mean they can't read, and I want them to write a journal. I'm asking if I could use the submission on the Google Classroom And the accountability comes from the parents to say that the child would have submitted the activity online. A picture of the homework that they did, probably not the homework that they did, but a picture of what they have done.
Well, you're taking me into specific questions about specific research. I don't know what you're trying to research, but the general principle is that your data collection strategy must take into account the characteristics of the students from whom you're collecting data. So if students are very young, for example, and they may not be able to complete a survey with 20 questions, you can't give them a 20-question survey. Or if your students have literacy issues, you may not be able to ask them to go and read a survey online and complete it. You may have to administer it yourself. Or you may find another way to collect the data. You might ask them to draw or to speak, whatever it is. In other words, you now are at liberty in designing your research to figure out the best way to collect data based on the students that you have.
Noted.
Sure, no problem. Is that Nadine Williams? Is it Nadine? It's a very interesting name you have there. And
Thank you very
Nadine,
much. Good afternoon. Are you hearing me?
greeting. Yes, we're hearing you, Nadine.
All right. I am just coming out of another workshop. As it relates to the action research, that's guiding principle 2. How is it connected to guiding principle 3, where we have the IIP? And if so, I want you to just give us a brief discussion about the IIP.
But Nadine, you're skilling up. Nadine, you're skilling up, Nadine. Nadine said, look here, I want to hear about IIP. So let me figure out a way to ask the IIP question. But Nadine, you're good. You're good. You're skilling, Nadine. But can I tell Nadine that I'm not prepared. I'm being honest. I'm not prepared to have a discussion about the IIP at this point. For time and also because of what we advertise. But I'm aware, teachers, Nadine, all of you out there, I'm aware, the JTC is aware that this is an area of significant consternation and befuddlement. We are confused, I know, as a system about it, and the JTC is aware, and we are doing what we can to address it. We haven't done anything as yet, but we have something in very short order that we will use to kind of support you in developing your IIP, so understand what they should be and in developing them. So Nadine, I thank you for trying to draw me out, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to get there today. But I promise you, we certainly shall be doing something with you guys in short order to help you with the IIP. Marcia, this is the last question before Marcia is gone. All right, Georgia is putting in the chat, Ms. Bill is putting in the chat an exit ticket that you can just go ahead and complete. We have about 9 minutes or so left in this session. Go ahead, Marcia. Last question, Marcia, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I wasn't gone. Thank you so very much, Mr. Leslie. Just to say that special education schools do IIP, and the special education unit is really, really good a source for IIP information, because as I'm from a special school and we have to do IIP at our school. Thanks.
Okay, right, indeed.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you very much, Marcia.
Thank you.
Yes, and so that is something we're aware of too, but we also want to make sure that, you know, we locate the conversation within a context that even a gen ed teacher realizes that this is something for them and not special. Because I think over time, the special education teachers, the special educators have kind of owned IIP, and we want to kind of decouple it from special education. So Nadine and all the teachers out there who see it on their appraisal will understand what to do. All right, so I only have 2 more slides. I think I'm doing very well with time, I must admit. Ultimately, and this is a point that I think we really should understand, because teachers ask me all the time, how do I know what to submit? How do I know how to submit? How do I know what I need to do? How do I know if it should be 5 pages long or 2 pages long? How do I know if my action research can only be a poster like I showed you earlier? How do I know this? It's your school that decides this. Remember now, the descriptors that exist for the appraisal all come from the school. You as a school community will sit down and look at your appraisal and decide, for this particular piece of evidence, what are we expecting? Now, it could be that in your school, the principal might say, we're going to ask grades 1 to 3 teachers to do one collaborative action research. And we're going to ask grades 4 to 6 teachers to do one collaborative action research. In which case, you might have only 2 action research taking place in the school, and you as a grade 2 teacher will be collaborating with the 1 to 3 teachers. And the principal might further say, as a part of their descriptor, at the end of the year, we're going to have a research day. And on research day, all teachers are expected to come and to present. Now, that can be the way that your school organizes your evidence, your presentation of evidence for this particular item. It is your school who decides this. And in that case, if that is how your school does it, there is no need for you to even be thinking about a submission, because the school is not asking you to submit anything. Mind you, for your own purpose, for your own growth, for your own portfolio, you perhaps want to document it. You want to have it there. Because the next time you look at a job somewhere, you might want to say, look at this action research that I did, and you want to pull it out and allow somebody to read it. And yes, Nicole, I see the comment, infant teachers are included. And in the same way, as a principal who has an infant school attached can so break up the teachers into groups so that they can organize themselves around action research. There's no rule that JTC has set. We just say you should be engaged in it. As a school community, you now define what that engagement looks like. How you present it, what it is that you do. Most of that, if not all of that, will be determined by your descriptors that your school generates. Okay, we have 2 minutes to go. I want to try to get through all of this very quickly. And I see a lot of persons have risen to the challenge and have really been helping in the chat with the transcription. I thank you guys so much. And Esther Robbins, you perhaps aren't hearing me, but this is something that you have taught me that we need to think about, ensuring that as we plan these sessions, we think about including those persons who might have visual impairments or hearing impairments. Right, so Kanisha says that their Department of English will be doing an action research as a team. Excellent, excellent. Those are things that we would encourage you to start thinking about. Okay, so 9 things that I think you can start thinking about right away. The first is document. Write down the things you want to do. Write down the things you are doing. And you'll be surprised to know how easy it is to think about them as an action research. Already, you are doing so many things that you can call action research. You're just not documenting it. That's the problem. You are not documenting it. Formalize it, document it, and call it an action research. Thinker, we have been promoting this a lot. Change something in your practice. Change the way you mark register. Change the way students go to lunch. Change the way you give assignment. Change the way you praise a student. Change the way you engage parents. Change something about your practice and see how it works. In the same way, remember now, you have to document. Change it, document what you change, look at how it is working. PLCs, there's no reason why as a PLC you can't join. Well, you can't join a PLC and through a PLC engage in action research. Every time you go into this training and reflection, you learn something new inside the session. Commit to yourself that you will take away one thing that you will go and try. That one thing you will go and try is something that you do a research on. Too often we go training, and we are not actually implementing. I tell teachers all the time, you all don't need any more training. Yes, I just said that. You all need to start implementing. Start implementing the 500 things you learned last year and stop trying to learn new things this year. But there's a backlog of implementation, whereas new learning keeps piling up on each other. So this is a session that we spoke about. Is this something that you can put into some kind of practice? Is there something from this that you can go and make a part of your practice, do an action research around it? Partner up, we've been talking about that. Find people in your space, find people in your department, in your school, who will want to do an action research with you. Get going. Find somebody in another school who might want to do an action research with you. Join a reading club, read an article about action research or an action research article every month. Month might be tight, so let's say every 2 months. But do something like this to get you going. Join a clan. Do you know, for example, that the JTC has lead teachers and mentors and master teachers? These are opportunities for you to get into a clan, meet other people, and start to do action research with them. New experiences are being presented to you. Network, I told you already. Try to, when you go into a Zoom session next time and the presenter is finished speaking, Google the presenter. Who was the presenter? I might be somebody from England. Google them. When you come out of the session, find their email address, write to them. Tell them how well you enjoy the session. Ask them their views and so on. So start a communication, start a conversation, network, meet new people. Go to conferences. Look at who is presenting, talk with them, find their website, find their Twitter page, find their Facebook, find them on Instagram, follow them, reach out to them, let them know that you were in a session with them and you enjoyed what they did. Comment on something that they spoke about. Let them know that you're alive. Put your voice in this space. Meet people who are on the same road with you. Network. When you network, that is how research begins. Because when you find somebody in New Zealand, and I just said New Zealand, yes, and they're doing something interesting in their classroom, try to ask them how it goes. Let them direct you, let them mentor you into doing the thing in your classroom. That becomes an action research for you. Do you have a PD plan? Do you know what your next PD activity is? Do you know what your PD goals are? Does your PD plan have action research as a component? These are 9 things that I think you can start doing immediately or almost immediately. And just like that, on the stroke of one o'clock, I'm at my very final slide that says done and done. Okay, I know Miss Bailey has been putting in the chat the exit ticket, and I know I've been seeing your comments, teachers. We did promise you that we would keep you here for 1 hour. Let me just allow 1 or 2 questions to flow. I must let you know though that I have another engagement that I am running into, so we might have a few minutes, but let me see if we can take a question or 2 about action research or about the presentation. And yes, we will make the presentation available. A number of persons have been asking me if they can actually get the presentation. Yeah, that's absolutely something that we can do. Is that my good friend, Danya, whose last name has been hyphenated? Hi, Mrs. Thomas Murray, I love it.
Good afternoon,
I
everyone.
was not creating excitement, Danya. Look at
No,
that.
no, that's fine. That's fine.
That is fine.
As always, you have done an excellent presentation, and it has added content to what I know as it relates to action plan. JTC, keep it up. I know you soon send call me. I soon come be a writer.
You know that, Danya. You know that anything we do, we include doing it. Thank you very much for your kind words, Danya.
You're welcome.
Danya is one of our lead teachers, guys, who is now in QEC 1. Well, you have gone back to QEC 1, Danya. You were there before, you're back there again. All right. Any other comment, question?
Yes, sir. Before you go, sir, just to say that we're aware that there are some schools that have joined us hybrid. So one person would have logged into our session, but they are Zooming. I'm going to ask that the representatives of the school ensure that all the participants who are viewing via the hybrid method also do the exit ticket. There is a question there on the form that will capture that data for us. All right. So thank you guys for really extending yourself in that modality. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, teachers. And for those who, and for the principals and school leaders and teachers who took that initiative to ensure that this was something that can be done in the way that Ms. Bailey just described. Good work, good stuff. Very, very glad that you all did that. Okay, so teachers, let me thank you again for joining us. This was our lunch. We call it a brown bag session. You come to this session with your brown bag. You have your lunch while you're engaging. So this was our first brown bag session, and I think it's something we may want to consider a little bit more of. But do enjoy the rest of your day, and you are going into a holiday weekend. Do enjoy your holiday weekend as well, and Godspeed and God's blessing on you all. Take care, everybody.
Enjoy your break, teachers. Bye-bye.